All right, so let's go live here and catch what's happening in Tel Aviv. I got friends down there in bomb shelters texted me.
Is up from Tel Aviv. However, we're also hearing reports, and I mentioned earlier in the previous segment that Haifa was being hit right now, and the images out of Haifa, we're working on getting them for you, are harrowing. You are seeing dozens of Iranian ballistic missiles arriving, many of them piercing through the layered defenses, the layered Israeli missile defense shield. And so there's a lot of questions about what's going on.
Yeah, well, tell you what's going, they're raining down missiles, and they have an arsenal of 2,000 ballistic missiles and missiles to shoot, and they're sending various waves through. Let me turn Jack down. I've been watching this with great interest. I've got, of course, friends in Israel in bomb shelters talking to me. Well, it's interesting that we kind of saw this. I mean, we picked up on this thing yesterday, and I said to you, I just got this feeling like this is happening. And my question was, is this a Zelensky thing where Israel is going to just be boldened to go ahead and do something on its own? But we've come to find out, and I'm always willing to update my intelligence in these things, that they acted like they were independent, and the president played along with the deception. Israel acted as though they were going to wait for another round of negotiations, and Netanyahu was going to be going to a wedding, and that the Americans were looking for one desperate last attempt. Meanwhile, Iran was potentially just days away, weeks away, according to General Flynn, of connecting the necessary fusion together to start to assemble a nuclear bomb. So Israel had deceived Iran basically into thinking that there was another round of negotiations while they feverishly worked on what they were doing. Then, of course, they struck. Now, you know that. What we've hence come to find out is the president knew this. He had given 60 days for Iran to do something, and Iran typically, thumbed its nose at him and said, well, we'll talk, but we're not going to give up our nuclear program. And so on the 61st day, that was it. Trump said 60 days, and he meant 60 days. That was the day. Boom. So the president is, it's Israel's unilateral independent act. We believe taking, America first, Israel first. Every country should be watching for its own preservation. Every president has to look out for its own interest, the people. And Israel has done that. But they took out the top 4 Revolutionary Guard divisions, commanders. They hit all the electronic warfare infrastructure in Iran. The command and control bases they took out, and they've also hit the nuclear sites. Natanz has been the most fully destroyed, but there's one more that is half a mile underground that will require the U.S. bunker busting technology in order for that to be taken out. That has not been, no one can know where that status is. And of course, if Iran's regime stays in power, you bet they're going to go there and they're going to try to assemble their nuclear device. So their deepest lab is still a challenge. Iran is knocking out their own internet now because they have revolutionary people in the country that are potentially going to commit some degree of uprising. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu spoke to today. He gave a message to the Iranian people. He said, we're not fighting you. You have an oppressive regime. We respect you. You're a proud people and a great people. And then he said something interesting. He said, ever since Cyrus the Great, Persia and Israel were once friends. And he's right. And he quotes Cyrus, which I think is kind of interesting for my prophetic crowd. But the reality is that Israel's avoiding. They're being surgical and hitting military assets and intelligence assets, even to the point where they're picking the floor between the 8th floor, 7th floor, and the 9th floor, and going right into the 8th floor with a surgical attack at the dwelling of where the command centers are and where the leadership is. The Mossad is a formidable secret service agency. I mean, they're brilliant. They're like Jewish little James Bonds over there. They have been utilizing drone attacks in order to strike at strategic targets inside of Iran. They've taken out 9 of 11 nuclear physicists, scientists, and technicians who are essential to the complexity of making the nuclear weapon. That means 9 out of 11 have been taken out. And it's, that's assassination stuff done by the agents in the nation. Israel defense facilities, IDF facilities, are now being targeted, according to us. So that would be like our Pentagon. They're being targeted. But because they've whacked the infrastructure for the electronic warfare platform, that means the ability to guide the ballistics has been blown up. So they're just lobbing 2,000 ballistic missiles and missiles they've got. I mean, they got a big arsenal. It's like my bookshelf back there. Imagine that 10 times larger than that. Just each of them can go. But Israel is taking out, with their Iron Dome, 150 out of 150 missiles. 3 to 5 are getting through. But that still is a very significant takedown. When you have 145 missiles out of 150, that's pretty powerful that they're intercepting. Now, they have gotten through, and there have been at least 5 that have gotten through into Tel Aviv. The difference is they're just firing blind into population centers, just off of a trajectory. They're not being guided. And that means that Iran is going after people. They're not going after strategic sites. They're actually after citizen damage, right? So, since they're going after the citizens, the only way that that Israel can keep them from doing that is to warn them that you notice that they haven't taken out their oil refining. Now, about 40% of the economy, or 50% of the economy of Iran, is dedicated to oil, petroleum, which is why the world laughed when they said we want nuclear energy. Well, you don't need nuclear energy when you're sitting on one of the world's largest oil supplies. But they didn't need nuclear energy. What they needed was nuclear material. But if Iran was to lose its oil refinery, then that would cause a severe economic hardship on all the people. But the hope is that the people will be emboldened to deal with the oppressive regime that they're facing. So I take back my conjecture that Netanyahu would act independent, taking Zelensky's model and saying we have to do what we have to do. And he worked closely with the U.S. Now, the United States has now a destroyer that has been moved into the area, which is a U.S. guided missile destroyer, which means that they can now be like between Saudi Arabia and Iran. You have that waterway there going towards Kuwait. So the destroyer can actually monitor every missile now that goes out from Iran, so that it can tell when it left, its trajectory, and where it's going to, so that Iron Dome can even better target and assess the incoming. We have now parked ourselves monitoring Iran. If Iran tries to attack the U.S. destroyer, then they would be creating a provocation that I think they don't want to escalate into. They don't have, people that are worried about this spiraling into World War III need to think that all the Saudis, the other nations that are there, are actually relieved that Iran doesn't have a nuclear terror threat. They are the Hamas and the Houthi and the Hezbollah destabilizers of the region. So they're quietly, but not certainly publicly, happy that the United States is giving a guarantee of protecting them as well from counterattack. So there's very little likelihood that this is going to be what would be a world war. Would be, of course, if a nuclear weapon was to strike Tel Aviv, and then Israel would strike Iran in return, and that would be something that will not happen during Trump's administration. It's just trust me, it's an interesting thing the way God put Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump in office. Sometimes you got to sit back and say you're living in an extraordinary time, and if you have discerning about the time, you thank God that your prayers have been heard to such a degree that you got the right people at the right time. Imagine if you had Kamala Harris, and some other guy in Israel. The funny thing about Israel is, as they can't get along on anything, they can't get along on what to eat for lunch, but they all agree that Iran is is a threat to their survival. So that's funny that all of Israel agrees with that. So that's a unifying factor. What also interests me in this is that Israel is not targeting Khomeini or the clerical regime. You know, so they have a fusion of clerical and politics. Unlike the United States, where we like to separate the religion from the politics, there the two are joined in Islam. They're joined together like one. But Israel's leaving Khomeini alone, and the clerics that are the militant ideologic leaders of their regime, and they are leaving the energy infrastructure alone. But they're warning that they could strike infrastructure if their citizens continue to be targeted. Fortunately, the Israelis are all in bomb shelters. I mean, they've been preparing for this for a long time, and they're kind of used to this drill. Not like us in America, where we don't have a bomb shelter in our house. I remember going to Jerusalem once, looking at a house to buy, which then was far more affordable than now. And they said, well, here's the living room, and here's the kitchen, and here's the patio, and let me show you the bomb shelter. I go, the what? I thought, who describes that as part of their, and here's the coffee, and here's the refrigerator, here's the dishwasher, and here's the bomb shelter. But every house has one. And so I went into the safe room, the bomb shelter room. Israel so far has not hit that infrastructure. Israel expects a certain degree of the penetration of the airs. People act like, oh, they're not as strong as people thought they were. This isn't a decay. Listen to Steve Bannon today. Steve Bannon, our MAGA party. You got to understand, this is the Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, and Jack Posobiec gets caught in the middle because he has General Flynn on, and he can't be whining about, no, this is going to get us in a war. But Bannon and Tucker, those guys, they don't want America involved in any foreign wars at all. They're like, all MAGA, be strong, but stay the heck and just focus on America only. Well, thank God you got Trump. I mean, he's all about that. But the guy's so practical. He says, no, China's a threat. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And we're not going to wait 100 days, Steve Bannon's idea. And I love Steve. I respect him highly. He's a mentor. But like he says, why don't we just do economic sanctions and tie up their oil, and in 100 days, they'll be on their knees. You can't give them 100 days. They're days away from the capacity for a nuclear weapon. This thing's down to the wire. So, another thing that I find kind of strange is Tucker and these other guys are saying, this is going to destroy the MAGA base. Let me tell you something. Tucker, and I love you. I've been with you too. You're a gift. I love all you guys. You're all the MAGA, big tent we got. But I'll tell you something. You guys do not understand that 60% of Trump's coalition is Christian and pro-life Catholic. I'm talking evangelical and pro-life Catholic. We make up like 50 million of those votes of the 80 million. We are Christians and pro-life Catholics, and we have a different view of the Bible and Israel than you guys do. And you think Israel's just a bunch of Jews over there that are controlling Congress and undoing almost like an anti-Semitic this hating of the Jewish lobby. We actually see that God raised up Israel and has a covenant with Israel, and that it's supernatural. This whole book is written by Israelis, including the New Testament. All a bunch of Jews wrote this thing. And we believe that the Messiah is returning to the Middle East, and his feet are going to come down on the Mount of Olives. We see the history freaks us out when we see stuff like this in the Middle East, because we know that history it resolves itself in the Middle East. Again, Jesus returns there, according to 2 Thessalonians, according to Zechariah, that he returns and deals with Antichrist forces. We're kind of sober about that stuff. But we do not for a moment believe that America's MAGA movement, and this is the illusion these guys have, they don't run into enough Christians, obviously, that the MAGA base is going to fracture over this is a joke. You're only going to see the non-Christians in the MAGA base, and they'll be divided 50-50, because you cannot have America held hostage to a nuclear terrorist state. Period. Why anybody would even goof around with that premise is nuts. It's like, well, we should stay home. Yeah, stay home until your neighbor gets a nuclear bomb. Then it interrupts your Father's Day weekend. So, We had to do this. Israel had to do this. Thank God Netanyahu is there. Thank God Trump is in office. And no, the MAGA base isn't going to fall apart because we don't have the Jewish problem that the non-Christians have, because we're educated regarding God's covenant with Israel, standing alone in the world. When Trump went in and put the embassy in Jerusalem, everybody predicted it's going to destabilize the region. Nothing happened. He goes with the Abraham Accords, bringing them together. So I'm just saying, you're going to hear people talking about, if you track with the political discourse of Trump's MAGA movement, as I do, you're going to hear, this will break apart the MAGA. No, it's not. And I told you why. Because Christians make up 50% of that movement, 60% of it probably. And no, we aren't confused about Israel. The guys that are, superficially Christian educated don't know that. Okay, enough on that subject. But I have to get it out there, get it off my chest. So this isn't going to fracture the MAGA movement. What I do find interesting is you got we do run the risk of Iran moving the program underground and building a bomb underground. Worst case scenario, I see that possibility. So I pray, we got to pray that the regime, by the way, this is going to end this week. You're going to be like, well, has Israel bombed and decapitated them? The way this works is weeks of this. And then you got to figure out of the 12 million that Biden let come in here to the United States, how many of them are, Middle East activists? How many of them are, God help us, Iranian and Palestine and Hamas terror cells? I mean, we just let them in. The ding-a-ling government we had just, come on in. So the doors are wide open. Who knows what happened? What you do see is you see the riots and the protests going on and the violence going on, the waving of these foreign flags going on. Well, yeah, you're invaded by 10 million military-aged, a lot of the military-aged men from other countries who don't necessarily love your country. Who knows why they're here? Many of them probably for the advantage of getting the heck out of their country and getting to a better life. But there will be in that group, how many? 1,000, 2,000 that are actually right now plotting to hit commercial airlines? Dare I say that? I fly. I don't like the idea. But you're going to start to see terror activity because that's just the prophetic nature of our gift. We see these things. And when you see this whole no kings uprising in the United States, they're queuing off of Trump, him basically, while this is happening with Iraq, you got the same nuts that are pro-Hamas that are going to be out there with a weird fusion of communism and Islam. What they have in common is they hate the United States, and spiritually they have an unbelief about God. Certainly a Christian God or a Jewish belief. But what you're going to start to see more of, unlike the last time we had the riots, and you and I were going, who's funding it? That's at the top of the issue for Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and the CIA right now, to the degree that we have influence over it. Right now, the chain of funding, and it's just weird. Like Indivisible is back again. The Barbara Streisand Foundation, Planned Parenthood. Where have you heard this? These are the deep pockets of money that go in, but they're producing the resources and the coordination and the infrastructure. So to the degree that these demonstrations become violent protests with the destruction of property around the country, you almost have to say they got 2,000 locations where they're funded activists. I mean, don't forget, you got 60, 70 million people that didn't vote for Trump. So you got a bunch of people out there, oh, no, I like this. Then you got your fringe over there, which are your activists that are paid. They don't have other jobs. They're able to do this all day. And then you got the radicals that actually receive money. In other words, they're on the payroll of the NGO organizations. So they're doling out the bucks. You got to do something. And so to get your money, you got to go out and make a ruckus. That's about to be exposed. So on the No Kings Day, organized by the board and unemployed professionals that are funded by, and there's a communist billionaire. They've already identified one guy. He's American citizen, but he doesn't live in America. He lives like in Chiang Mai or someplace. And he's a billionaire who funds radically the communist NGOs. So you got your Marxist-funded NGOs, and he's a big funder into the No King's Day uprising in America. But I am of the opinion that that is going to play out really badly. And of course, you know, it's spiritually interesting. They pick like Father's Day weekend. They pick, when Trump is having his birthday or something. And they pick this time to come against Trump when actually I think the realistic world is watching what's happening with Iran and Iraq. The realization that Israel and Iran, and they're realizing that Israel is actually doing what it needs to do to survive, and that Iran has been irrational and dangerous. And to see their Hamas, satellite taken out from October 7th, to see Hezbollah taken out in Lebanon, and to see now Iran's infrastructure being systematically taken apart by strategic airstrikes and intelligence that's decimating Iran from the inside out. I would say that this weekend is not going to be the weekend that makes the argument that the United States is overly involved in King's activity. We're actually trying to keep ourselves safely disengaged. And what we are doing is trying to protect the airspace of our allies and our friends in the region. So there you have it. Iran is going to continue. They've got 2,000 ballistic missiles. If they can get 10% of them through, that's 200. That's a lot. If they get 5% through, it's 100. If Israel can keep it down to 50, then that's an expression of their strength. The Iron Dome really does work. The Israeli citizens themselves are hunkered down. It's inconvenient, it's shocking, it's traumatizing after October 7th. Now they're back hearing explosions. But they're handling it well with remarkable low levels of casualty. And I think that Trump is right in saying to Iran, you guys are going to get decimated. You're just going to get pulverized. I say you come to the table and you run to the table to do a ceasefire and a deal with me, because I'm going to give you a good deal. We want to get you back on your feet. Let's get trade going. Let's get something normalized here. I think that this is just me talking. I hope that doesn't happen too quickly. I think that we do have to take out the one, begins with an F, the name of the city where they have the half-a-mile underground, most powerful nuclear lab. We have to get in there and monitor it. I think that's got to be part of the deal, that we have infrastructure, exploration capacity. And if they're not willing to do that, bombs away until they do. And I think they will have to be brought to that point. What that means is that you have perhaps a decade, a gift from God. Instead of nuclear war, a third world war, the rise of China, the Europe and Russia engaged in some kind of a ghastly accelerated conflict, I think you're going to start to see things come down. It's going to look a little rough, but you're going to see a period of peace that'll come out of this. Because the region, Trump went through, he did his little show down there. Now you know what he was doing. He was bringing business to America and solidifying his Arab alliance, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Arab Emirates. And he brought these countries, we already have Jordan in an alliance with us, and even Syria. Syria is behaving itself because Mohammed bin Salman asked Trump to please normalize relationships with the new president of Syria. I will vouch for him. So the president of Syria has Mohammed bin Salman to thank, and so they're going to be chill. They're not going to be doing crazy stuff right now. You have the gift of peace that God gave you. And Lord, we just thank you that Israel had the ability at the 11th hour to do what they had to do, and that the United States was able to give it the technology to be able to fight their battle. We gave them a slingshot with great power. And I thank you, Lord. I ask you to bless the region with peace and stability. Cause wars to cease with Russia and Ukraine. Cause China to cease trying to undermine this country, cause them to cease from fentanyl to agricultural bioweapons. Lord, shut the gate on that and cause there to be a normalizing of relationship with China. And let us have a period of peace where the gospel can go into the various nations of the earth, because there is a new period of stability and economic restoration in this administration. Thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Well, that's pretty much what I want to tell you. You guys, you understand that Florida is the opposite of California. California's nutty with a nut job governor over there. It's like yin and yang. You got Newsom over there claiming he got rid of Trump, and now the cities can burn down properly under his administration. And meanwhile, DeSantis over there says, hey, they're going to do these riots and demonstrate. Let me tell you something. You want to do that in Florida? If your car is surrounded by rioters, like I've seen in some of these northern cities, remember the BLM riots in Port, trapped in, people there, terrified, people banging on their roof, jumping on their cars, screaming on the windows. If you feel like your life is threatened and your car is surrounded, you can run people over. It's okay. Just go. Just get out of it and you're okay. Just run them over. They got this one guy, Wayne Ivey. Was he a sheriff in one of those counties? He goes, you throw a brick or a firebomb or point a gun at one of my deputies, and we'll be knocking on the door of your family to tell them where to pick up your body, because we'll take you out. He basically said he will shoot a protester who threatens a deputy with a gun, throws a brick or a firebomb. We're not joking around. You do that to us, you're dead. Well, I don't know what county that is, but that's Florida talk. And these guys are better than Texas. We don't do that in Texas. Well, but we sure appreciate it when Florida does it. So silly. I'm sorry. I should be more of a pacifist, given my Quaker, theology. But that's all I got for you tonight. By the way, I got a new book. Amazing that they call this Operation Lion Rising, and I just wrote the book. You won't believe it. The title of it is The Return of the Lion. I kid you not. I'm releasing it right now, The Return of the Lion, and it deals with Israel and the Middle East. And they're calling it the Lion Rising. That's this operation. Crazy. How's that possible? Go to lancewallnau.com/lion. And it's free, whatever you want to give. It's a gift of any amount. It's, you can pay for it, you can not pay for it. Pay for the postage and read the book. If you like the book, you can send me a Valentine's card. But lancewallnau.com/lion. The Return of the Lion at the time when the lion's rising. You can't make this stuff up, people. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. God bless you.